You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to The Spirit Dimension with your host, Kerry Greenaway, right here on Parasearch Radio.
Good evening and welcome to The Spirit Dimension on Parasearch Radio. My name is Kerry Greenaway, and as always on a Sunday, I do like to bring you something a little bit different every single week. This week is no different. It's just me, myself and I in the studio. No Claire, she's gone on holiday. How dare she? How dare she go on holiday is all I'm saying, which feels a little weird. However, I have actually got in the studio with me a guest, a lovely guest. He's one of my best friends in the paranormal world. He's a para-theorist, a researcher, a blogger, an investigator, and so many other titles to his bow. It's untrue. It's the lovely Mr. Ashley Knibb. Good evening, Ashley. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. That was a lovely introduction, by the way.
It made you sound very good, didn't it?
Lots of strings to my bow there.
You're more strings than you think. So, Ashley, we've spoken to you quite a few times on Parasearch Radio. We kind of know your theories that you're working on, because you work very much in regards to the psychological side of things, the psi factor, don't you?
Yeah. I like the mind-boggling part, the telepathy and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I am no psychologist, but I mean, I like to read and try and understand it and talk to psychologists and parapsychologists to try and understand a bit more about that area. So yeah, that's the kind of area that kind of fallen into is probably the best way to put it. I didn't start out thinking about it all about psychology and all about telepathy and all that kind of stuff. It kind of just evolved into that over time.
So how did that evolution take process? Was it because you'd read something that changed your thought processes on that, or was it just a natural progression through what you witnessed when you were out in the field?
Yes.
Or both?
I mean, I started out years ago. I had a few experiences when I was younger that I couldn't explain. But over the years, I'd done a lot of reading and all that kind of stuff. And then I think it was about 13 years ago, I started doing overnight investigations. And at that point in time, it was like that was when Ghost Hunters was on TV. So debunking was a big thing. So I'd go out and do it. Because I work in the IT industry, I was quite good with tech and stuff like that. So debunking and the tech and all that kind of stuff was quite big for me. I thought that's the way to go. That's what I understand. So I go down that route. But I kept on reading and stuff like that. And then over the years, I noticed that you make observations about certain things and certain aspects, and you see bits and pieces that sort of like seem the same or have the same meaning and that kind of stuff. And I think the pinnacle kind of moment is I began to read things by people like Rupert Sheldrake and stuff like that, who wrote about the sense of being stared at, and you begin to understand about telepathy in normal scenarios, and then you think, hang on a minute, and that's when the penny kind of drops a little bit, and you think there's a bit more to this than just chasing ghost fans and debunking things and saying because there's high EMF, that's why you're experiencing these weird things. So.
Okay, now recently your journey has taken you on a slightly different pathway. From your own personal work in the field, you've actually become more involved with the SPR, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
So for the people that don't know, that's Society of Psychical Research, correct?
Yes, the Society of Psychical Research, yeah, that's right.
Okay. Can you explain to everybody what the SPR is, please?
What's the SPR? They're an organisation, well, a society that's quite well structured and well established. They were formed in 1882 by three friends out of Cambridge, Trinity College, and basically they, like us now, they ask questions about things, and they're interested in things like philosophy and psychology and elements like that. And they began to look into things in that kind of nature. So they built the organisation down. It's been built up over the years. It's had many presidents, but their approach is very academic and very scientific. So they produce a journal on a regular basis as well. And in those journals, you get papers on different aspects and ideas around parapsychology or psychical research or things that fit into that as well. And also they discuss certain ideas and facts around things to do with the research and that people are doing. And they bring in people to talk and have lectures, study days, like I've just been to one, around various different topics and stuff like that within the field as well, in order to get a greater understanding of what's going on. I mean, fast forward to these days now, and Central London, they've got near West Kensington, they've got their own building. They've got a lecture room there. They've got an office area space there, but they've also got a proper library there with lots and lots of books and stuff like that, and all the journals and that from all the way back to when it first formed, that you can go and look through and all that kind of stuff. And it's had some prestigious members over the years as well. So for me, I see it as like the original investigative team, but approaching it from a more academic sort of level. I mean, they have input into universities like Northampton University now, where they help. Where they give them grants and things like that to continue research and stuff like that as well. So it's quite an academic level of stuff to do with the paranormal, but they do a lot of really interesting stuff, so to speak.
Okay, they look at topics in a way, and they take forward in an academic research way that is the next level up, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, they do. Yeah, so you can't you like this. This is where the thing I've had conversations over the last few years with people about photographs and video and things like that. Audio, for example, as well. Where people call it evidence, that would not be deemed enough information or data, so to say, to be presented as good evidence for something in the paranormal for the SPR. You'd need a good piece of research or a good piece of investigation with lots of information and things going on. I mean, they investigated the Enfield haunting, for example.
Exactly. So when you approach a body like the SPR, you're not able to just approach them with like you said, like a picture or a piece of video evidence. You have to have almost like an entire case study.
Yes, exactly that. You'd, I mean, for example, the Enfield haunting, obviously written up by the late Guy Lyon Playfair, but also the skull experiment, which was done in the mid 90s as well. In fact, the skull experiment was originally published in the SPR proceedings before it became a book, and they documented everything that went on, presented it to the SPR. It then went through other elements of the SPR where they check for things like where they thought it might be fraud, or whether other elements and that kind of stuff. They cross check it and recross check it and reevaluate it and all that kind of stuff as well. So it becomes they want to find what I often call the holy grail of information or evidence within the paranormal or psychical research, and that means that you have to have a lot of information, a lot of text, a lot of if you're going to do a home that's being haunted, for example, you'd have to go there lots and lots of times and observe all that activity that's going on and document it well, with timestamps and all that kind of stuff as well. Okay.
So I hear you all ask, where are we going with this conversation? This will become clear in time. Bear with us, guys. It's all relevant. If you're going to... sorry, I'm going to change that. The SPR have actually undergone a bit of an evolution themselves in regards to their approach. They actually consider other topics now which they never used to consider.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, to be fair, one of the more recent ones is probably things like science and nature sort of thing as well. Things like a recent study which I reported on, they've done like science and nature, especially looking at telepathy and things like communication and how it all fits into nature. So where you see it with animals and stuff like that, and also the research that's been done into things like in those elements as well. The thing that I went to yesterday. Yeah, yesterday was another study day, and that was about lucid dreaming and psi. So they're really expanding what they look at and all that kind of stuff. And there's I mean, I talk to people there, and there's a real expansion beyond what they first started off doing, which seemed to be quite centered around mediumship and things like that, because that was quite affluent at that time, if you like. But now they look at quite a lot of broad spectrum elements of it. I mean, they have all kinds of stuff that they look at. They're open-minded about quite a lot of angles. Let's put it that way. The psi and nature aspect, and obviously lucid dreaming being the ones that most sort of relevant at the moment. That's just popped up into my head. But yeah, there's not anything that's really off the table, I don't think. Telepathy. I mean, God, the list is probably endless, to be fair.
Yeah, it is. But they have gone through that evolution from the good old days of the Enfield haunting and the skull experiment, and they're actually more open-minded and more open to looking at other aspects that may come into play in regards to the paranormal now.
Yeah, definitely, I'd say so.
I think so too, from reading various papers and stuff that come out of the SPR. Okay, so if you was to do a case study in this way, you've mentioned that you have to do multiple investigations, as it were, to build up your case file. What other research methods are you looking at in regards to building that case study?
From my point of view, I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult. So, I mean, if you're referring to something like the Enfield hauntings, so say someone's reported a poltergeist activity at a house, let's say, yeah. Then like that case, you'd have to go there, you'd have to spend time there, you'd have to observe, you'd have to try different things, you'd have to allow other members probably of the team to come in to put their perception on it, their observations as well. So you're not just one person putting that information in there. So if something does happen, that you're observing it and re-observing it, and you've got more witnesses, and then find ways to capture that as well. Obviously standard factors, but you tie in everything. I mean, things like we use in standard investigations, you put those in play, like temperature, EMF, and all those kind of stuff. But you go beyond that because you want more data. You want to show, basically, you want to be able to observe the change and show that change happens, and then when that event happens again, to show that the same change happens again. So you can say, well, when this thing happens, that I don't know, an object flies across the room, let's say, then we see this drop in temperature to this level, and then that happens every single time. So we know that's correlated with that, or we see this kind of thing happen. I mean, I'm using temperature as an example there, but I mean, there's 101 different things that you could look at. I mean, I personally would look beyond just the environment. So it's not just the environment, there's the people involved as well. So there's the psychology of the people, the belief of the people, the understanding about their education and all that kind of stuff, understanding them as individuals, understanding their history as well. So there's a bigger picture. You have to, the term that I use with Kerry, zoom out quite a lot.
Love that term. He uses that term quite often with me. Zoom out, Kerry, zoom out. I've started using it. This is the worst thing about it, is I've actually started using this term myself. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so basically, we often go, and I know 100% admit it. When I first started investigating, you turn up a location and you investigate the location, and that's what goes through I'm here to investigate the location. But in these kind of scenarios, because you're looking at active hauntings and all that kind of stuff, you want to zoom right out and you want to look at the location. Yeah, that could be important, but you want to also look at the people that are in that environment as well, and the fact that as many people over the years, many academic people as well said, it could be the people that are creating this situation, as was postulated with the Enfield haunting. They believe that at some point it might have been the girls themselves that, although there was times where they thought they were being fraudulent. There's also times when they believed that they were creating this activity themselves. Hence, where the whole kind of element of that whole aspect around poltergeist comes from, and that kind of looking at those elements as well. So the bigger picture and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's you have to zoom right out, because every time you add something to the environment or an individual to the location, you're changing your sort of area, basically. And proper scientists, I call them proper scientists would know this, because as soon as you use a lab, when you use a lab next to an experiment, you set controls and you set your variables so you know what's going on and what's changing. And that's the most difficult thing to do in the field, because you've got an ever-changing environment and you've got multiple variables, especially when you've got lots and lots of people in there. So I think if you're going to do a proper case study that's of the level that would go into the SPR, it needs to be over a long period of time. It needs to well document things with time stamps and all that kind of stuff. Who was present, who wasn't present, what happened, how it happened, what things changed, all this kind of stuff. There needs to be a lot of information documented in order for it to be a good case study.
So you need readings, data, time stamping, tagging properly if you're doing particular sessions. You need a small team, preferably.
Yes, definitely.
We're not necessarily talking private house investigations. We're talking small team location investigations. It's not just about private house investigations. We're talking if you get access to a location, you've got a small team. It's those kind of factors, isn't it, that we're looking for?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll use the Enfield one there, but if you jump away from the Enfield one and take anything that we do on a regular basis as in paranormal investigators or ghost hunters around the UK or the world, for example, we pop into sort of locations that don't have anyone in them on a regular basis overnight. If we're going back to the same location over and over and over again throughout the year, then that becomes a good case study, because it means that you'll get used to the environment. So certain things like the building changes. So when it's the sounds it makes when it cools down or heats up and all that kind of stuff, they'll start to go away because you'll know what they are. So they won't make any. They will be sort of like null and void, if you like. So then you'll get used to the environment. So then you'll be able to focus more on what might be paranormal in the environment and be able to document that better.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when we're out investigating, and we're talking in regards to just a small team going out investigating, I'm not including any other form of investigation in this point. What would you say is the holy grail in that?
What, as in the holy grail of evidence?
Mm-hmm.
The holy grail of evidence is going to be a personal experience, but a personal experience that is then backed up by umpteen different things that capture that personal experience. The problem is, a sort of personal experience is usually quite a one-off thing. So if you go beyond that, it's got to be a personal experience that reoccurs. So basically, you go to the same place on one night and you see an apparition, and you've got all these gadgets that pick up all this information that shows the change. So it corroborates what you're seeing. You've got cameras that are showing it in film. You've got audio that's picking up an audio change. You've got temperature, all this information that's showing all this different stuff going on. You're probably monitoring yourself as well, so you can see changes in your heart rate and all that kind of stuff. So you've got all this information to back it up, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you go back a couple of nights, and every time you go back at exactly that same time, that's say for argument's sake, you get the same thing. So you've got it repeated, and then you do something, you realise that you're doing something at that time that triggers that, and then you've got the element of science, haven't you? Because you can repeat it and repeat it and repeat it again. That's the holy grail. Being able to trigger the activity, if you like, so that you can record it and understand it and then learn more from it. That's the holy grail.
And the recording of it is the key factor.
Yeah, because it's not recording on it as in audio video. It's recording as in across a lot of information, a lot of different gadgets to show all the different data and numbers, which seem a little bit boring, but help back it all up in the end.
Mm-hmm. So it's building up that whole picture.
Yes.
In regards to data collection, as well as coupling that with a personal experience.
I think so, yeah, because it's the personal experience that triggers us to continue to do it more.
Okay. So, How many teams do you feel working this way out in the field at this point in time?
I think fewer teams lend their ear to gathering data. I think more teams approach it from an experience point of view. I know a lot of teams will use things like CTV and camcorders and stuff like that, and voice recorders and stuff like that to record audio and video as they're moving around and take pictures and stuff like that, which helps, and that does help catalogue certain things. But it's the biggest problem is consistency, and that's where you've got very few. I think there's very few teams I think that are being consistent with gathering hard data, and the reason for that is, and I'm quite happy to say this because I've done it myself, because sometimes you just go for a ghost hunt and you don't think about it. It's not the most exciting way to investigate gathering data hour on hour, 7 hours a night sort of thing. You do an investigation, and I get that, but unfortunately, from my point of view, and I'm pretty sure those are like the academics and stuff like that, and if you think about it, back me up, it's that data that will help us understand what's going on, because you can see the changes that are happening in the environment and with the individuals at the same time. So, and I think very few teams are consistently gathering hard data on a regular basis. When I say regular basis, I mean like, half an hour kind of intervals at the very longest time period.
Okay. So is this needed to help progress the field? If we want to find the answers, actually what it does is it defines who is trying to progress the field and who is just out as, and I don't mean this derogatory in any shape or form, a hobby. It defines the two sides, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one to broach, because it's a subject matter that's that sometimes I don't think people understand where they fit. I mean, I didn't know where I fit in the grander scheme for ages, and to a degree still wondering sometimes. But I think many that go out. It's a hobby for them. It's fun for them. So it's an experience based sort of approach. So they're not looking to gather data in big quantities in order to try and understand as much as what they think. They're going to capture an experience, which is why you go audio video, because that is a basic understanding of, well, if I capture it on video or audio, that corroborates the experience that I had, and that's enough, which is fine. It's absolutely fine. But understanding all those experiences is also quite valid. So for someone like me, I'd like to know if those experiences occurred, for example, which is why I've done certain things recently, which we'll probably get onto soon. But I like to know if those experiences and where they've happened and when they happened, so that I can then start to build up a bigger picture then, and that helps me see what's active, what's not active, and what's going on, and how things change, and how many of these experiences people are having, all that kind of stuff. And that for me is quite interesting, because I've dropped into this telepathy field. I want to try and understand what causes paranormal activity, or what causes this experience. Are we having an experience because we're interacting with spirits and ghosts of people that have passed? Are we picking up information that's being transferred by the collective consciousness, or all these kind of things? I want to understand the source of it and how it happens and all that kind of stuff. And to do that, I need big, huge amounts of data.
This is true. It's the data collection that's needed. Now, in everyday kit that the majority of teams have, there's an awful lot of tools in there, isn't there, that can be used to help collect this data?
Oh, of course, yeah. There's loads of bits and pieces they could capture. I mean, everything that every team's probably got in their kit somewhere can be utilised to gather some piece of information that could be passed around and shared, that we could utilise together quite well. I mean, I don't think any team's probably got every single thing they probably need.
No.
But then you have to kind of marry that up with what a lab might have and how they might approach it, and then the access to funds and stuff like that, and all that kind of aspect of it. So, and obviously because it's quite a progressive and an unknown kind of field, and all these gadgets are none of these gadgets find ghosts or anything like that, but they help us pick up pieces of information and data that we could put together to say, well, did that change? Did that change? Has that changed? What's going on there? But if you take one reading at one particular point in time, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, because you can't compare it to anything else. So that's kind of where they fall over. All these pieces of kit fall over if you only take one reading and don't think about consistency and all that kind of stuff.
So how often would you take readings throughout an investigation?
Well, one of the things I used to do when I've done overnight investigations, which I think I've even been laughed at a couple of times by some people, is I used to go around the location, and if we're doing a couple of rooms, if you had a few rooms that we'd be covered in the investigation, I used to go into the room. I think on the investigation we went on recently, actually, you probably saw me do it. I'd go into the room and I'd put a little tape mark on the floor. Mm-hmm. And the reason I do this is because I then take what most people call baseline readings. Yeah. Obviously, when you take baseline readings, you have to understand that things change over time anyway. So just if it's dropped if a temperature, for example, has dropped 1 degree, that's not significant. It's got to be massively different and all that kind of stuff. But by taking those readings, you know the kind of the lay of the land throughout the night. And that tape mark means that I can go back to that one location, which is where I took the reading originally. So it's pretty much going to be similar to where I took it the first time. Yeah. And if I do that consistently through the night, then I know that I'm pretty good. Ideally, I'd like to be able to do that consistently everywhere all the time. So a data logger that can do that all night long would be brilliant. But if you haven't got access to that, which over the years I've not had access to that, what I used to do is probably do every half an hour or every hour. I used to go back and do the rounds and collect the data up. I think like the investigation we went on, you saw me walking around with a laptop, tacking it into a spreadsheet all night, most of the night.
Yeah, I did. I saw this. I admit this. I was like, what the hell is he doing now?
It's not exciting, but it's helpful.
Which I soon realised why it was. Very useful. Now, the other factor in this is, yes, it fills your night up, basically. You're not concentrating so much on the spiritual experiments. You're also backing up with the data collection, as you were. Yeah. Duct tape even. So important. Yeah. I found this out recently on an investigation. That is incredibly important. Marking spots on the floor and stuff. I was like, what the hell is he doing? But these are the important things to help build up those data on a consistent basis, aren't they?
Yes, definitely. I mean, there's lots of different ways to do it, but as long as the key is being consistent, and where you're doing it is being consistent and all that kind of stuff. It's not. I put my hands up in the early days when I used to do it. I walk around with a temperature or EMF gauge or something like that, take a reading and all that kind of stuff. I'd even do baselines and write them down and stuff like that. But I never used to. When I first started, I never used to mark out where I used to take the reading. So I'll be taking it from different points in the room, and obviously different points in the room have a different variation. So all of a sudden, I've added a variable in there because I'm moving around the room suddenly. But by putting those little marks down, as silly as it sounds sometimes, that little mark is just enough for you to go, right, that's where I took the reading last time. I'll take the reading the same there, and I'll do it again. And I think the first time I've done it was like in Walk and Winter Gardens, and I gave it to part of my team. I goes, right, go and mark out where you're going to go, and then go back to them all the time, all throughout the night. And they looked at me all kind of funny, and I was like, trust me. But it is good because it gives you consistent readings from where you're going and what you're doing, and from the same place within each room as well. Mm-hmm. So it gets a bit more sort of like, it's not. There's still variables involved from a scientist's point of view. There's still variables obviously involved, but then you're cramming it down. I mean, some people sort of like will say, well, there's no point taking base readings because it doesn't do anything, but that gives you your base reading throughout the night. So you can see like how things respond. So if you're stood in that room half a meter away from the mark, and you pick up a massive drop in temperature, and like 2 minutes beforehand you've done a reading, you've got a consistent line to show your reading going through the night in that location and the drop as well. So you can compare the two. So look, throughout the night it was this temperature. At this point it dropped by about 5 or 6 degrees. So I can now prove that there's a drop in temperature. If you've only registered drop in temperature and no consistent reading, you can't compare it to anything. So you've got nothing to go on. So you can't prove or disprove what the temperature was previously. You can only say, well, I looked at the gadget and it told me it dropped. If you catch my drift, sort of thing. Yeah,
no, I know what you're saying. Okay. Why are we so focused on data, Ashley, in regards to... Why are you so focused on data? What is it that is integral for you?
I think as you know, I read quite widely in different aspects of the field, within psychology, paranormal science, and that kind of stuff. But in science as a generalisation, data seems to be the key to finding anything out or understanding anything. And in order to understand anything that's going on with anything, you need to have data, even the basic experiments. If you think back to school, when you've done school experiments, the first thing you've done is you go, right, okay, we're going to do this experiment. And usually you have a little table and you write things down in the table, don't you?
Yeah.
And then the teacher will go, oh, so what's changed then? And then that's how you work. And that's basic science that you've done at school, probably even back in junior school kind of age. They call it junior school now. I don't think they do. But but basically, it's all about stuff in tables. And when you get into bigger science, they do that as well. I mean, parapsychology and psychology, they use things like, J.B. Ryan used to do things with the Zener cards, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they used to note down all the cards that are turned, and then they compare it to chance and do mathematics against that to see if it was against chance that it had happened, or it was above chance, all this kind of stuff. All of that needs a lot of data to be logged down so you can understand it and then make an understanding from that. So you could draw comparisons. You can't, without any data, you can't draw those comparisons. And I not stumbled, because it's obviously been a science thing for ages. I suddenly realised in the investigations that I was doing that we put together case files and stuff like that, and we was trying to get this information, but gathering this data just wasn't something that people wanted to do, and it was difficult. I mean, Graham, you know Graham, he's kind of similar as me. He wants to gather data as well, and I think it's so important to get all this information, because then you can look over it, you can see these changes, and you can see you can begin to understand what's going on then, and sometimes that understanding isn't paranormal either. You can understand things that are normal, because you begin to go, I know why that's like that, and I know why we had that experience because this thing happened, and then and it's like, it might not be paranormal, but you can see what's what, because you've been monitoring different things and you've got all this data logged down. And the data, when I say data, it doesn't necessarily just doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be temperature, EMF, numbers, and all that kind of stuff. It can be information as well. So it could be anecdotal differences. So it could be people saying, "Oh, I feel like this," or "I feel like that," or "I thought the light changed and went darker," and things like that. All that information is also good data to gather as well. So it's not just numbers and things like that as well.
No, and we're not. The thing with this is, it's not a question of building it up so you go, well, there's logical scientific explanations for all of this. When you've got a consistent level of data going through the evening, it actually starts pinpointing and highlighting where anomalies are occurring, which gives you key points for further investigation.
Yep, definitely. It can help you. It can help guide you to where you need to investigate. It can help you guide away from where you don't need to investigate. It can help you understand natural occurrences. So you begin to go, that's not paranormal. But it can what I'm hoping is that it will help us gather that information to help us understand those anomalies, help us understand what's going on and stuff like that. And that's the important thing for me. And I don't think, and that's half the problem, I think, at the moment. I mean, I know there's a plethora of information out there in regards to people's stories and all that kind of stuff in various different forms, and that's important. But we need the data to go along with it. So we need to marry it all up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, to bring it together and actually progress the field in regards to, there's loads of people out there investigating. Can we get the relevant data that's needed from that? Because we can't possibly do it by ourselves.
No, God, no.
No.
Well, we could try, but no, we can't.
So, okay, let's talk about this project, because I talked about this on Monday when I put the show out, and I said, we need your help in the paranormal field. We need you. And I want to do pointy finger, weird hat thing going on. Let's talk about the project that you are currently working on at this moment in time. This crosses over into a 3 different project prong. It's almost like a trident of projects that are going on at this particular point in time with 3 different people.
Yes.
Let's focus on your project.
Oh, okay.
For this moment. What is your project? What are you actually trying to achieve? What do you need?
Okay, so a few years back, and I'm reaching behind me now just to make sure that I've got the right book. A few years back, in fact, 2015. Really, 2015. In 2015, I wrote something called the Theory of Telepathic Interaction. And basically, this was an idea that all the bits and pieces that I'd read and understood, put together, I came up with a theory basically a bit like Richard Feynman came up with using symbols and stuff like that to understand quantum physics and quantum mechanics. I use that kind of same concept that he had to try and apply it to communication, if you like, either spirit communication or in a seance environment or even in an investigation environment, in order to try and understand what was going on, basically. What I'm doing now is on from that, basically. So I'm moving that on now to try and understand a bit more, because since then I've picked up on a few other aspects that kind of feed into this, in this kind of like equation or mix that makes these things happen. Mm-hmm. But in order to get to where I need to get to and just do a proper piece of research and write a proper science type paper, and
a proper science type paper,
a proper one. Rather than the one that I wrote years ago, is I need to have, well, we because obviously it works for you and for Graham as well. We need to have a data set, because you need to have a big set of data to start off with, and you can't. That doesn't mean 5 or 10 different cases. It means hundreds of cases.
Very
hundreds
much so.
Of
Hundreds, everybody. I would just like to add this in. Hundreds.
And they need to be geographically spread, and they need to be chronologically spread. Is that right? Yes, right. So then all these cases will span a lot of time and a lot of space across the planet and all that kind of stuff, so that we've got this information from different places. That's important as well. Having them from different places is important as well, because then that way you can say, well, this is the same kind of activity that it happened here, so what's the correlation? And you can start looking at those kind of things. So it's getting to that point. I mean, this particular point in the research project sort of thing is gathering what I call the top line information, basically. So it's the where, the when, and the what, before drilling further down to find out a bit more about it.
Okay, if you've ever done English at school, there was the how, why, who, when, what, which, where, and this is basically what we're after. Okay, we need this information from you guys out in the field. We want you to share that kind of information and any data readings you were able to take throughout that investigation. We're not talking public events. We're talking small team investigations, whether that was private houses or bigger locations that you just did as a small team. We need your help to help build this database of information up so we can push forward on this research project. As I say, it's a 3-pronged research project. Different parts of it are headed by different people. Now, Ashley has released a form on his website, which I've shared into the chat room. If you're not happy doing that, please talk to one of us.
Yep.
Please help us build it up. You obviously are going to be credited with any information you assist us with in this research project. This is not a 5-minute project. I would just like to add this too. This is a in-depth study of trying to build a picture in a way that's not been done before. And we need you guys to help out with this. We need this help, basically, because we can go to the libraries at ASAP or the SPR or, the British Library or stuff like that, and we can spend hours and hours and hours looking up information. But 9 times out of 10, those cases are quite old. You guys are out there week in, week out doing this work. And if we can help you progress your investigation techniques to give us some information that becomes part of this massive research project that's been undertaken, then all the better. You're also evolving in your own ways in the field. You're coming out with new experiments, and these are becoming closely guarded secrets. This research project that we're doing is not going to be public information, so no one's going to nick your secrets. No one's going to do that. It's going to be purely very, very confidential for the... and if we release any information, we will obviously have your permission to do so at the right time in the right place. But we need your input. We want to hear about what experiments you're doing. We want to hear what data you're collecting. We need this information for this massive research project. As I say, it's 3 different research projects all tying in together. that 3 different people are working on. Isn't that right, Ashley?
Yes, it is, and it isn't a small one because we've already been working on it for months.
It's already, yeah. Hence why we're now putting a cry out to the paranormal field, because we need help. We need help. We cannot physically be out in the field ourselves gathering the information that we need. So we're looking for teams that are really interested in helping to progress the field, are already doing that for themselves, but are doing it very, very quietly. If you want to be part of this project, please get in contact. If you're not worried and you just want to fill the form out, fantastic. That would be awesome. That's on That's on Ashley's website. I've shared the link into the chat room for you. And so if you're not happy doing the form, approach myself or Ashley, and we'll help you with that. I said that, didn't I? Help.
Yeah. The other thing is we can have anonymous ones come in as well, but obviously they'll be documented as being anonymous as well, so the source would not be done. Part of what we do obviously is in putting this together, as Kerry will probably tell you, one of the things I'm stringent about is finding and adding the source of the information to make sure that if we need to go back to it to understand more, we can, because obviously we'll get all your information come in as well, but the other thing we will do is be hitting the libraries, because I already have been hitting the libraries as has Kerry, and to get more information from them as well. But the information that comes from the guys out there, you guys out there that are already out there investigating week in, week out, as Kerry's put it, that's live data almost. That happened last week. That happened the week before. So it's brilliant to add that as well, so we can have stuff that's progressing. And as we continue to do the research project as well, if stuff's still coming in as well, we can add that into the information that we've got to see if there's changes and things are evolving and things like that. And that could be really interesting as well. So that's what's really important. And like Kerry said, whatever you send in, if your name's against it or your team name's against it or anything like that, that will be put in as part of the source and as part of if I manage to write a paper or anything that gets done in the end, that will be cited in there that information came from you, so it won't be lost.
No. So it is completely transparent. We're not doing this for our own benefit. We want to progress the field forward. And this is the point of today's show.
It certainly is.
We've talked about the form that's on your website. There is another method, which is a project you actually worked on, pre-project. This was something that Ashley came up with before the project. Now, I've talked about this before, and I said this was a really useful tool. This was a useful tool for me in my investigations. Now, it's called the Paranormal Investigator's Journal.
Yep.
It's a book that Ashley wrote quite a while ago. Do you want to talk to me about the Paranormal Investigator's Journal?
Yeah, to be fair, it started its life off as my own journal, really, my own way of taking notes during investigations in order to make it quicker and simpler. I mean, it started up as thing that myself and Graham's worked with me as well, bits and pieces do as well, which is like case files and understanding case files. And what I wanted to do was create something that was almost pocket size. It's not pocket size, but almost pocket size, that an investigator could have with them, and they could scribble the information about the location. So the basic case information, so you've got your plan, your information, your equipment list, things like that, bits of historical research and the activity research and all that kind of stuff. But then also when you get on the location you're running around in the dark, you can quickly fill out, like if you have a bit of activity, you can quickly fill out something that documents that piece of activity down, and then you can put it together later on, which is the event log. And that's what I put together. And the book, you said wrote a book. It was the easiest book to write because most of it's full of forms and blank pages. So I don't class it as writing a book. It's got some information in there about how to use it at the beginning, and at the end as well. I've also included six, isn't it? Yeah, six experiments that you can try on an investigation as well. So all of which I've done previously, which are quite good. Some of them, and some of them have some really. All of them have some really positive results, actually, to be fair, and interesting ones as well. The first one on there is the Gansfield experiment. It's not the actual Gansfield experiment. It's my field version, because obviously you can't do the Gansfield experiment properly whilst you're in a field investigation, but it's the field version. And I've had that work for me as well in interesting ways, or had interesting results come back from that as well. So another one's been audio Singapore theory ones. That's had positive results as well. I was surmising. But most of it's filled with event logs, so you can quickly log down the date, the time, the location that you're in, so like the room or whatever, the category of the activity, so whether it's a physical physical sort of piece of phenomena, or it's psychical, as in like mediumship or something like that, or whether it's audible or visible or to do with equipment, so like ITC, who's present, who witnessed it, and a brief description, and any data that was captured as well. And you can quickly write that down really quickly and simply. And I've had nothing negative back so far, touch wood, about it. So, but in there you can also document, I think it's, again, six, yeah, you can document pretty much 6 investigations in one book. Which I thought was a good number for most teams, unless they're doing them every single weekend, in which case they might need some more books. But it's quite. I've produced it and put it out there, and it's probably, I think it's like a tenner delivered, isn't it? I think, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
it's not massively expensive anyway. In fact, it's probably the price of an empty notepad, like a Moleskine or something like that, isn't it? So so that's a bit of a bonus. I mean, and in that, the information in that is pretty much what I'm looking for in the research project as well.
Yes, and that's why we're talking about that. We're not just doing a promotion on your book. There is method to our madness, guys, in this one. We're also really, really interested in new experiments that you guys have developed in the field. That's another area. I know several different experiments that are in the field that small teams are using, but they're keeping them very, very quiet. We're not going to be putting these out for all and sundry to use, but we are interested in some of the private experiments that you're doing and the results that you're getting from that experiment. And with our knowledge of how it would be viewed in other areas in regards to maybe recreating or different theories that are behind that, we would be able to help develop those experiments that you are using in the field, that you guys are developing from your own experiences. We're interested in that side of things too, aren't we?
Yeah, it's almost like peer review, basically. If you're getting good results from an experiment that you've put together that's working, I'd be massively interested in trying that myself to see if I can recreate it, or what circumstances are required to recreate it, to see what that is and how that can be moved forward as well. Because that's what we need to do. The peer review is an interesting one, because it means looking at things and retrying them and then seeing what went right and what went wrong in order to move it along a little bit.
Progress it. Yeah, to progress it. Now, this is where we start bringing together the field in a way that has never been done before. We want to include your experiences in the field. So it's like a multi-pronged thing. It's a knock-on effect. So we're helping build a research project that helps build data that maybe, hopefully, we get some different perspectives on the paranormal on. We are hoping to allow teams to progress their ways of working so that we get the information that's needed to help progress the field. We want to know about new experiments that are out there. Again, that helps other people who are working at maybe higher levels come up with new ideas. You don't know where this could go, but it's all about helping bridge that gap between the people that are in the field doing the work, quite frankly, going out week after week in locations and building that information, and also the science behind it. Ashley?
The science, yes. Sorry, you cut out a little bit at the end there. It is all about bridging the gap. It was about. One of my recent frustrations, I'm sure Kerry will quantify me on, is I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, the field's not progressed anywhere in the last 100 years," and all that kind of stuff, and that's utter rubbish. And I hate to say it. It has massively progressed. We've got universities doing parapsychology now. We've got people doing all kinds of research projects and stuff like that within the academic field. The problem is that the academic field is brilliant and doing amazing stuff, and it is pushing away a little bit. But then we're losing that connection to the guys out there in overnight on a week on week out basis that are doing bits and pieces, because they're not fulfilling that. That they're not gathering that information or that data that's new, or in order to help corroborate that stuff and bring themselves up to that level and tie it all together. And that's what needs to happen. That's where the bridging the gap kind of element comes from. We need to put things together so we can say, right, okay, we've done this and we've done this, and this is the process we used and all this kind of stuff, and these are the results we got, and then we've done it again over here in this place, and we've done it again over here in this place, and it's still done the same thing. So that's obviously got to be interesting, and that's where we can start to put those kind of things into sort of like the bigger picture with what the parapsychologists are doing, with what the likes of the SPR are doing, with the likes of the ghost hunters out there day in, day out, doing all that kind of stuff as well, and in paranormal investigators as well, and bring it all together to sort of say what's going on, what's the source of the activity, and all that kind of stuff, and begin to answer those questions that we really need to answer.
Because we're all out there looking for those answers, regardless of how you approach this. We want those answers, and that's why I started in the field. I needed answers in the way I work, because although I work in a very spiritual way, as you guys out there all know, I still want to know, is it this? Is it that? I still need those answers for myself. And that's what got me into the paranormal field in the first place. That's what started me on this amazing journey that I've been on, that's got me talking to some fantastic people in the field. And I'm sure you're exactly the same, Ashley.
I am 100% exactly the same, and I'm glad you mentioned like the spiritual element there as well, because when you start talking about things like this, like gathering data and science and doing experiments and stuff like that, I know that there's a lot of my friends who are mediums and more spiritually driven and that kind of stuff that will roll their eyes at me and think, oh God, he's gone again. But that's not the case, because I've had conversations at the SPR with people at the SPR about how important things like certain elements, like intention, things that cross over between science and spirituality, how and ritualism, even rituals and stuff like that, and how you do certain things are all tied together in the fact that like the processes and that you use in science and how you do things and that kind of stuff is a similar way that you do things in a ritual within magic and stuff like that as well, or how you might do things within spirituality. You kind of go through certain steps and stuff like that, and you have this intention to get to this end, and that all these things kind of follow the same kind of path. They just call them different things. Yeah, and that's. So they're already kind of interlinked already by certain aspects of it, which I think are things like intention, attention, and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's the bit that always makes me laugh, because and I think Carter's one that says it. He says, "Oh, you're sat on the fence again." It's like, oh yeah, I am sat on the fence, but I like being on the fence because you see both sides of the field. Exactly. On both sides, they see what's going on in the spiritual side. You say, okay, oh, they're doing that, and if I take that and I put that over here and I monitor that using science and stuff like that, I'll get some interesting results, and that's what happens. And that's what I think is fascinating, is taking both sides and putting them together and saying, what would you do in this situation, and what would you do in this situation, and how would you monitor that, and how would you do this, and that's when you start to get some really interesting results and stuff like that, when you create experiments that incorporate both sides, and then you get some fantastic things.
Exactly. So we're not discounting spiritual. I know it sounded very scientific. It sounded very data collection tonight, but it's not. It's about bringing spiritual and science together. It's talking about bringing the community that's out there doing it week in, week out, with the academics that are doing the laboratory research and the psychological research and stuff like that. Is trying to bring it all together. So we start seeing a whole picture, rather than the academics working in their own way, the ghost hunters out in the field, or the paranormal investigators, out in the field doing it in their way. We're trying to bring the field and bridge that gap between everybody. So we start building up the information that's needed to actually progress the field from all fronts, not just one front, all fronts. And that is where the three-pronged project that's going on in the background, which has already been going on for a good few months now, is needing you guys out there in the field to help drive this project forward. It's not a short-term project. I'm going to reiterate that. This is not a short-term project. We are looking for serious paranormal investigation teams to work with to help build this database, to help build this, the experiments that are going on, to help do that, as well as now and again, Ash, me and you, we love going out on a normal, fun ghost hunt as much as anybody else, don't we?
Yeah, the problem is, all I find is when I decide to relax, not gather data and go out on a normal ghost hunt, that's usually when something happens and I get caught off guard.
This is true.
But yeah, no, we understand. We're not saying, right, everyone needs to stop going out and having fun and start gathering lots of numbers and data and information. We get that people have to go out, have to have fun, and it's a hobby and all that kind of stuff. We get that, but even if you have an experience and you can come back and sort of say, do you know what, I went to, I don't know, I went to Landguard Fort. I used penny credits.
Yeah,
I went
go
to
for pennies.
Went to Landguard Fort last Saturday, or the Saturday before. I can't remember which went now. I went to Landguard Fort last Saturday, and I had this experience, which falls into this kind of category. There you go. That's the start. That's the top line information. That's the beginning of the information that I need, or we need, so I say, to start putting that into our database of information or spreadsheet of information. Just having that, the place, the time it happened, what happened, a brief description maybe as well, just gives us a kick-off point to start to go with, and the source obviously coming from who went there and that kind of stuff. And that gives us enough information to start with to put it in there to say, right, okay, something happened then, and we can keep documenting. And if we had, I don't know, if we had, at the very minimal, if we had 5 teams that done that on a regular basis, that went out on a regular basis, say two times a month, we'd gather so much information over the next year, it'd be unbelievable.
And that would be an absolutely awesome assistance to this project that we're working on.
Coupled with the stuff from the books, that would be amazing.
It would help so much, guys. So again, we need you guys out in the field. We need your help. We want to work in collaboration with you to help build a research project that we're working on. I will say again, it's a serious research project. It's not a 5-minute project. Already we have worked on this for months. This gives you a little inkling as to what else goes on behind the scenes of mine and Ashley's world and Graham's world as well. They're the 3-pronged people that are involved in this project. And it is a huge, gargantuan task. And we need your help. And that would be awesome if we could find at least, say, 5 teams that would work in this way with us.
Yes, definitely.
Very much so. Anyway, how can they get hold of you, Ashley?
How can they get hold of it? From my website, www.ashleyknibb.com. I've got contact details on there, the forms on there that you can fill out for the top line information as well. There's information on there about all other bits and pieces to do with things like this, all the Psi research and things that I've done before, investigations I've done before. The Paranormal Investigator's journal is on there as well, if you want to use that. It is useful. So my website's probably the best route to get me, basically.
Ashley is also on Facebook. He is also on Twitter if you're not happy to go through the website. So check Ashley out. If you would like to be involved in this project, contact either myself. You know who I am, guys. I'm Kerry Greenaway. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me through Parasearch Radio. I'm on Twitter as well. I'm everywhere. You guys know me. If you want to contact me in regards to this, I can always put you in touch with Ashley or work with you myself in the way of this project. So, on that note, please, we do need your help. We would love to work with at least 5 teams across the country or world, even for the American audience that are listening. To help with this research project. On that note, we are coming to the end of the show.
Already?
I know, that went fast, didn't it?
It did a bit, yeah.
I just want to give a quick shout out to the people in the chat room. Gary Bradfield, mwah, hope you feel better very, very soon, Gary. We love you lot. EAPI, mate, that we really want to talk to you guys. And we've got Sam Sweeting, North Knots Paranormal in the chat room. Kaz Rooney, Entity Seekers. I know she's already bought your journals to start using in the field.
Thank you.
So, which we're hoping is going to give us some data. She's very, very interested in what we've got to offer. Carl Hutchinson. Love you, Carl.
Good luck.
We love Carl Hutchinson. Mr. Tech Guy himself. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, we have a brand new website, parasearchradio.com. Check blogs out over there, check show information, check... Oh my God, there is so much on the website going up on a daily basis. Keep checking that. You've got the latest show available in there. We have a new YouTube channel, Parasearch Radio, on YouTube. We've got a brand new intro for some special videos that will be coming up. Go over there and check that out. That's gorgeous. Don't forget to subscribe on the YouTube channel. Exclusive videos will be coming up on that channel. So don't forget, go over there, click the subscribe button. We are also on Podbean for all the old archive shows that we're moving off of Spreaker. Check some of those out. We didn't, but the KTPF Reload show is on there with the late Guy Leon Playfair. If you want to know more about the Enfield haunting, you need to have a listen to that show. That was absolutely, a coup, shall we say. It was an absolute coup. There are so many different interviews on there. Seventh Sanctum, the KTPF Reload show are all on Podbean at the moment. We are also on SoundCloud, as well as bringing you shows every single night of the week, apart from Saturdays, because we're off out doing our own thing on a Saturday, on the Spreaker channel. And on that note, we have hit 10 p.m. I will be live on the Parasearch Radio group page tomorrow afternoon at some point. I'd like to keep you guys on your toes. Keep your eyes out for that, to give you a rundown of all the shows coming up on Parasearch Radio for this week coming, and giving you a little recap of what happened this week. And on that note, thank you so much, Ashley, for joining me in the studio and helping me put the cry out to the paranormal field.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to everybody who's gonna help, because I'm sure there will be some people that help.
I do hope so. I really, really do hope so. It is a project that cannot be missed if you're serious about the paranormal. That's all I can say on that one. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. On that note, catch up with me tomorrow on the live group page feed, and we will be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m, for the Parasearch Radio Encore show with the very lovely Mr. Carl Hutchinson. We talked all about stickman figures, and he corrected me, saying it was an SLS camera. It was Tech Talk. We all know what I'm like with Tech Talk. Carl put me straight. Listen to that show tomorrow night. And on that note, love you guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.